Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something that a lot of us feel, but we don't always talk about. It's this kind of inner emptiness, right? A void that we so often try to fill up with food. We're going to explore how fasting can be used not as some restrictive diet, but as a really powerful tool for understanding and healing that emotional space from the inside out. Okay, let's get into it.
So let's start right here with this very simple, but pretty revealing question. I want you to picture this for a second. It's late at night, you're definitely not hungry. I mean, dinner was just a couple of hours ago. But you find yourself standing there in the glow of the open fridge. You're looking for something, but you're not even sure what. It's not about your stomach growling, it's about a feeling you're trying to soothe. Maybe it's stress from a long day, a little pang of loneliness, or just plain boredom. If you've ever used food to try and change how you feel, then this is for you.
So here's the roadmap for our chat today. First, we'll try to define that empty feeling. Then we'll look at the psychology of why we eat our feelings. After that, we'll reframe fasting as a tool for your mind, followed by a practical, step-by-step guide. We'll also talk about how to navigate this journey with some self-compassion. And finally, look toward a life that's beyond that feeling of emptiness.
All right, let's dive into our first section, that empty feeling inside. This whole idea of a void is really the central theme here. It's a metaphor, of course, but it's for a feeling that can be really tough to put into words. And yet, it's a feeling I think so many of us recognize immediately.
This feeling, it's not physical hunger at all. It's more like a soul hunger. You know, it's that low-level hum of anxiety that follows you home from a stressful day at work. It's the deep quiet of the house after everyone else is asleep. It's that sense of loneliness you can feel even when you're in a room full of people. It's just this vague, persistent feeling that something isn't quite right, that something's missing. And it just sits there, you know, demanding to be filled.
So what do we do when this feeling bubbles up? Well, for most of us, our first instinct is to reach for something easy, something immediate, and something comforting. And that's almost always food. Food gives us a quick sensory hit. You know, the sweetness, the saltiness, the crunch. And for a moment, it actually works. The pleasure of eating distracts us, it quiets down the noise in our heads. But, and this is really the core of the issue, it is only a temporary fix. It's kind of like putting a tiny band-aid on a deep wound. The relief just doesn't last. And once the food is gone, that void comes right back, often with a brand new layer of guilt on top.
And that brings us right to our second section, why we eat our feelings. See, if you want to break a cycle, you first have to understand how it works. This isn't about being weak or lacking willpower. There are real, powerful psychological reasons that drive us toward food when we feel emotional distress. So the official term for this is emotional eating, and it's pretty straightforward. It's using food to make yourself feel better, to soothe or numb your feelings, instead of satisfying actual physical hunger. Think about it. Physical hunger kind of builds up slowly, it's patient, it can be satisfied with lots of different foods. Emotional hunger, on the other hand, it often hits you like a tidal wave. It feels urgent, it's overwhelming, and it usually craves something very, very specific. Learning to tell the difference between those two, that is a game-changing skill. Now, this is really interesting because it breaks down the why into three really common triggers. First up, you've got stress. When you're stressed, your cortisol levels go up, and your brain starts screaming for a quick reward. Sugary, fatty foods, they trigger a release of dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical. So it's a very real but very temporary biological fix. Then there's loneliness. You know, when you're by yourself, the silence can be overwhelming. The simple ritual of making food, the sounds, the smells, the act of eating, it fills the time, it fills the space, and it creates this brief little illusion of companionship. And finally, you have all those other tough emotions: sadness, boredom, irritation. Eating becomes this really powerful distraction, a way to kind of numb out so you don't have to sit with those uncomfortable feelings. Okay, so if we know what the problem is and we know why it happens, how do we actually start to fix it? This leads us to our third section, fasting for your mind. And this is where we have to make a really important mental shift. We need to stop thinking about fasting as just a diet for losing weight and start seeing it as a powerful practice for mental and emotional clarity. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. The goal of intermittent fasting, in this context, is not about deprivation. It's about creation. You are intentionally creating a pause. You're creating a space in your day where you're not just automatically reacting to every single impulse with food. And in that quiet space, something really remarkable starts to happen. You get a chance to actually listen. For maybe the first time, you can clearly hear the signals your body and mind are sending you, without all the constant noise of eating. And this slide just illustrates that shift perfectly. On the left, you've got the old cycle.
An uncomfortable emotion pops up, which leads straight to eating. That gives you a few minutes of relief, sure, but it's almost immediately followed by guilt and feeling out of control. And then guess what? Those negative feelings become the trigger for the next round. It's a trap. But now, look at the right side. Fasting inserts a brand new, powerful step, the pause. When the emotion comes up, you don't just react, you pause. And in that pause, you get a choice. You can observe the feeling, get curious about it, and start to understand what you truly need. And that understanding, that is the first real step toward healing.
So the really crucial point here is that the benefits are deeply psychological. First, it builds incredible self-awareness. When you feel a pang and you don't immediately eat, you're forced to ask yourself, wait a minute, what is this really? That's a muscle, and every time you do that, you're making it stronger. Second, this practice improves your emotional control. You're basically teaching your brain that you don't have to be a slave to every single impulse. You are in charge. And third, on a physical level, fasting can actually help regulate hormones like cortisol, which is the body's main stress hormone. With more balanced cortisol levels, you become less emotionally reactive to all the little daily stressors that used to send you running to the kitchen. Now that all sounds great in theory, but theory and practice are two different things, right? So how do we actually get started? Let's move into a practical, step-by-step guide. And remember, the goal here is progress, not perfection. It's all about taking small, sustainable steps in a new direction.
We're going to break this down into 5 core practices. Each step really builds on the one before it, and together they create a really strong foundation for changing your relationship not just with food, but with yourself.
First things first, just start simply. You don't need to do anything extreme. A fantastic starting point is the 16-8 method. All this means is you have an 8-hour window for eating, and you fast for the other 16 hours. Now that might sound like a lot, but it could be as simple as finishing dinner at 7 p.m. and then not eating again until 11 a.m. the next day. A huge chunk of that fast happens while you're asleep. The whole point here isn't to make you suffer, it's to intentionally create a period of time where food is just off the table. And that forces you to find new ways to cope.
This brings us to the next couple of steps, which are all about asking questions. In the middle of your fasting window, or maybe right before you're about to eat, you're going to feel an urge. Just stop. Take a breath and ask yourself this one question. Try to find the feeling in your body. Is it that hollow, growling feeling in your stomach? That's probably physical hunger. Or is it more of a tightness in your chest, a lump in your throat? That's your clue that it's emotional. And then take it a step further and actually write it down. Keep a simple journal. Just writing, I'm feeling anxious about that big meeting tomorrow, gives the feeling a name. It gives it a place to live that's outside of your body. And that simple act can really reduce its power over you.
Okay, now what you do during your eating window is just as important as what you do during your fast. This is all about practicing mindful eating. When it's time to eat, just eat. That's it. Put your phone away, turn off the TV, sit down at a table, and just pay attention to your food. Notice the colors, the smells, the textures in your mouth, the flavors. Chew slowly. When you do this, you're not just mindlessly consuming calories, you are truly nourishing yourself. And you'll be amazed at how much more satisfying your food becomes. You'll probably find you feel full and happy with a lot less.
And finally, step 5 is all about becoming your own biggest fan. This whole process is built on one small victory at a time. Did you feel stressed and decide to take a 5-minute walk instead of grabbing a cookie? You need to acknowledge that, give yourself some credit. Did you pause and ask yourself if you were truly hungry before you ate? That is a huge win. Celebrate it. Every single time you make a conscious choice, you are building self-trust and self-respect. And it's that growing sense of self-worth that will finally start to fill that inner void with something real and lasting.
Now, any journey of real change is never a perfectly straight line, is it? There are going to be challenges. There will be tough days. So it's absolutely critical that we talk about how to navigate this path with kindness and compassion for yourself.
Let me be crystal clear about this because it might be the most important thing to remember. You will have setbacks. There will be a day when stress just gets the better of you and you fall back into an old habit. This is not a failure. It is not a reason to give up. It is a completely normal, expected part of the learning process. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress, and most importantly, awareness. The kindest, most effective thing you can do for yourself is to just be gentle.
So, when a setback happens, here's your new game plan. First, and this is non-negotiable, refuse to blame yourself. Guilt and shame, they are totally unproductive, and they just fuel the same old cycle. Instead, I want you to shift from being critical to being curious. Ask yourself, okay, that happened. What was I feeling right before that? What was the trigger? Treat it like you're a detective gathering clues. A slip-up isn't a failure, it's a lesson. It tells you exactly where you need a little more support. And then you just let it go and focus on the next right choice you can make. As you go along, you need to build a new toolkit, right?
new strategies for when those difficult emotions come up. A lot of the time, our brain mistakes thirst for hunger. So your first response could just be to drink a big glass of water and wait 10 minutes. If you're feeling down or stressed, try some light exercise. Even a 10-minute walk can release endorphins and serotonin that will naturally lift your mood. And if you're feeling anxious, the most direct approach is to calm your nervous system. Just 5 deep, slow breaths can make an incredible difference. These are the tools that actually address the root of the feeling, instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it.
And all of this brings us to our final section, where we look ahead. We've talked about the problem of the void, the tool of fasting, and the practice of mindfulness. So now, let's think about the destination. A life where fulfillment really comes from within, and food just goes back to being one of life's simple pleasures, not our main coping tool.
So I want to leave you with this last, powerful question to think about. Imagine all the time, all the energy, and all the mental space that is currently taken up by thinking about food, resisting food, eating emotionally, and then feeling guilty about it. Now just imagine that space is clear, it's open. What would you fill it with? What hobbies could you start? What relationships could you build? What adventures could you have? The ultimate goal of this journey isn't just to stop emotional eating, it's to clear out all the temporary fillers to make room for what truly, deeply nourishes your soul. Thank you for your time.